you're watching this now, whether you're watching this later, I'm glad you're here and I'm excited to have you with us. Okay, so the first thing I want to do is I have got a little bit of a disclaimer. So I represent Off the Class. I don't represent Verbling. I don't represent any other teaching platform. So everything that I'm saying is not coming from any Verbling or a platform in any kind of official capacity. I am simply an online teacher who has been able to have some success using these platforms, and I'm here to show you what has worked for me. Okay, so just everything I want you to keep in mind that everything that I say is coming from that perspective, right? Not from any kind of official perspective. So let's talk about who this is for, who this webinar is going to be for. So you are in the right place if you are an online teacher on Verbling or another marketplace and you struggle to get students or earn enough income. You're in the right place if you've been rejected from these types of teaching platforms in the past. If you want to join one in the future, or if you're interested in learning more about teaching private lessons online on one of these marketplace style sites where you can do things like set your own prices, set your own hours, and have a little more of the freedom than you would otherwise have if you just worked for a regular company. So at this point, if you're in the right place, then stay. And I want to introduce myself to you a little bit. My name is Chris Rush. I am a full-time online English teacher and a teacher trainer. And I have been able to use these marketplace style sites to have a full schedule and basically teach as many hours as I want and felt like. And now I want to kind of share that with other teachers who want to do the same thing, because I know there's a lot of frustration with these kinds of websites. So just a little bit about my background. In April 2016, I was freelancing and I only had a few students of my own. And now I teach as many hours as I want. I have the full schedule, as full as I want it to be, and I have lifestyle freedom. So I spent a couple of years traveling around the United States in my caravan, just kind of teaching wherever I had internet hotspots. So in less than 6 months from when I started doing this, I was able to raise my prices 3 times, get promoted directly by a teaching platform, fill my schedule so much that I was burned out, and satisfy my students to retain them for months and months. So I'm going to show you the most important things that got me from one place to the other, from new teacher, no students, didn't know what to do, to less than 6 months later, full schedule, all the students I wanted. I'm going to show you 3 things. And these are the 3 things that are the most important, because a lot of times it's easy to overcomplicate this, because really this comes down to 3 key processes. Number 1, attract. Number 2, convert. Number 3, retain. These are the 3 things that you absolutely need if you want to be a successful online teacher. You need to structure your teaching profile to attract students, give an effective first lesson to convert this one-time student into a multiple-time student, and you need to be able to retain those students over time without having to increase the amount of time that you're spending preparing and getting ready to teach. So for all of these things, like you need all 3. If you're not attracting any students, well, then no students come in, right? So it's a non-starter. If you're not able to convert students who book their very first kind of trial or first lesson with you into a long-term situation, then you can't keep students. If you're not able to retain students over the long term, number 1, just having the number of students, and number 2, without making yourself crazy, then that doesn't work either. So at the end of the day, these are the only 3 things you need. And in this webinar, we're going to talk about all of these things. We're going to spend a little bit of time on how to attract, how to convert, and how to retain. And that means I can't get into too much detail on any of it. It's going to go quick. If taking notes helps you, that's fine. If you have questions, let me know so that we can help you get the most out of this as possible. Okay, so here's kind of the situation. People are teaching online in record numbers, and these marketplace sites are flooded with teachers. So that means that most of the teachers are trying to get students by charging as little as possible. And you see this if you look at the other teachers on these sites, or look at places like on social media where people talk about these marketplace platforms. what do you see? You see teachers saying, the only way I was able to get students was by charging a lower lesson price than everybody else. And I feel like there's no other way. And I myself stayed away from these situations for a long time because everywhere I looked on the internet, this is the only thing people were saying. All people were saying was, you if you can only do this if you're going to undercut your competitors. And so I thought, well, I don't want any part of that. And Liz, if you have experience with that, and definitely type it in the chat box, and I want to hear from you about what your experience was like and what you're doing now to kind of combat that, because this is definitely the direction the conversation is going. But the problem is that this benefits nobody. Nobody is helped from teachers structuring things this way. The students aren't helped because the students are just looking for, well, what's the cheapest I could get? What's the lowest I can get? And it certainly doesn't help you as a teacher. It doesn't help you from an income perspective. And it also doesn't help you. It doesn't feel like you're doing something good or helping if, as a teacher, you feel like students are just trying to get something for nothing or asking you if you'll do it for less or whatever. And students aren't approaching that situation like that from a way of saying, how can I improve? How can I take my language to the next level? But it's almost like, well, then how can I get the best possible deal? So that doesn't work. So that's why what we're going to talk about first of our three elements of attract and convert and retain, we're going to talk about how to attract students in a way that gets you out of this kind of race to the bottom in a way that benefits both you and your students. So there's two key things to this attract. Number one is optimize your first impression. And what does that mean? So you have to think about this from a student perspective. When a student is looking at a marketplace style site, they're usually looking at many teaching profiles at once, and they're just scrolling through them. And the analogy that I think of when I do this is like if I'm at a shopping mall. So let's say I want to buy something, right? Let's say I want to buy some clothes. So if I need a suit, and if I want to buy a new suit, I'm going to go to the shopping mall. And I'm going to go to the shopping mall and I'm looking for a suit. Well, when I'm looking for a suit, I don't have time to go into every single store and touch every single suit. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to walk by and look at the windows, right? We call it window shopping. So that's what I'm going to do first. And that's what your students are doing. When your students are scrolling through teacher profiles, they're window shopping. And just like you are when you're shopping for something, that's kind of what your students are feeling too. So what does that mean? That means when you're looking, you're not really interested in the finer details. You just want to look really quick, and you're going to make a snap decision on whether you're going to go into this store or not. So you're walking and you look at the window, and in 3 seconds you say, I'm going to keep walking, or you decide I'm going to actually go in. And so in that 3 seconds, it is hugely important for you to make the best presentation possible. That's why stores spend so much development and millions of dollars on their sign, on their windows, because they want people to walk by to come in. So just in that same way, whatever the student sees first when they're scrolling through the list of teachers, you want to make that as attractive as possible. So that means if you have to make a video intro for your teaching profile, you want to be really careful about the thumbnail that shows up. And the thumbnail is like the still image that shows as the frame of your video. On YouTube, you can choose your own thumbnail. So many teachers, they have a thumbnail that's like this because it just randomly chooses a frame that's from within their video. But if you actually can like take a screenshot and then use the one where you're looking at the camera, where you're smiling, that will make a huge difference. Also, if there's like some text, if there's a little bit of text that students see when they're looking through the teaching profiles, you want to make that text as optimized as possible to have students take the next step. So that means you want students to come into the store. They're not going to book a lesson from you just by looking at that little snippet from your teaching profile, but you want them to come into the store. So all you want them to do is you want them to learn more. And we're going to talk about this in the written instruction too, but you want to talk about them, not about you. There are so many good teachers who pedagogically speaking can deliver excellent results to their students, but they don't know how to talk to students in an effective way. And if you don't know how to talk to students in an effective way, it's not going to attract them. So not talking to them in an effective way means talking about you instead of talking about them. So if in your text and in your video, you say, I have been teaching for 20 years. I have a degree from this institution. I am interested in this. These are my hobbies, my lessons, me, mine. The student doesn't want to know that, not yet. Think about you when you're window shopping. When if you decide to go into a store and you want to know about a suit and the salesman starts telling you about the details of their life, look, no offense, but you're not interested in the salesperson. You're interested in the suit. So just in that way, your students are interested in the results that you can give them. So you want to talk about yourself. I also want to talk a little bit about niche, right? So Liz said that she does business English. I did business English. You might see people talk about this concept of niche. What is niche? Do I need a niche? And niche means for English teachers, what type of English do you teach, right? We have business English, we have medical English. Some people focus on writing, some people focus on specific skills. I think that for a lot of other languages, um, niche is less important, right? Because let's say you want to learn Portuguese. Well, there's not necessarily such a huge number of people trying to learn Portuguese that I'm going to find the teacher that is very specific to what I want to learn. But with English, there are so many people learning English and so many people teaching different types of English that it does make sense to sort of choose some kind of specialization. You can't teach all things to all people because if you do, it doesn't make it exciting. And so like it's like when I want to go shopping for something, right? I love shopping for like electronics, right? Electronics are like a thing that I'm interested in. But the store that I want to go to the least is Walmart. Walmart is not an exciting place to go. It's not a fun store. Walmart sells electronics, sure, but I don't want to go there. It doesn't speak directly to my interests. Their selection isn't that great. If I have a question, it might be hard to find a salesperson. And when I talk to the salesperson, they're probably not going to be an expert on electronics. They may not be able to tell me anything. But when I want electronics, I go to an electronics store. I go to Best Buy or in the past Radio Shack because I know that the people know and they have all the different cool things. That's what you want to be for English. So whether it's business English or whether it's some other kind of English, you want to think about choosing something that's going to make you appear more interesting and exciting to your students. Because what you want is to speak directly to your student in your video profile, in your written introduction. You want to write it for one person. You want to speak to one person so that when your student reads it or watches it, you want your student to have the feeling that says, this teacher is speaking to me. Wow, this is exactly what I need. And if you start trying to say everybody, so if in your profile you say, I teach business English, so if you want to do business English, we can do that. And I do teenagers, and I do kids, and I do aviation English and medical, and I do test prep too. If you say that, your message isn't going to resonate. You're going to come off like Walmart or KR4 or whatever these big box stores are. It's not going to be exciting. The student's not going to have this feeling that says, "Oh, this teacher's speaking to me," and they're not going to want to learn more. So when you pick a niche, it doesn't matter what you pick, just pick something. Don't worry about it too much. I do see also people get stuck in like, do I choose this or do I choose that? No, just start with something and see how it goes. And don't be afraid to change it. Teach what you know, because niche is like the right level of Zoom, right? Like if you say, I teach business to HR professionals whose Spanish is their native language. That might be a little too zoomed in. There might not be, you might not have enough universe of students unless you're teaching like specifically in Spain. But if you try to make it too general and have too many specialties, like that's not going to be appealing. So niche is all about finding the right level. And one of the ways to do that is trial and error. Just do it, just try something and see how it feels and if it gets results. And don't be afraid to change your mind. So in this aspect of talking about them, instead of talking about you, I'm going to share with you, this is the text this is my standard default profile text that I use no matter where I'm teaching. And this, it works. This has gotten me so many students and I've tweaked it very little over the years. And I've just found it to be incredibly effective. And I just kind of want to show you a little bit about why it's so effective. Because if you look at kind of where I start with the student, not with me. If you are a professional or otherwise need English for work, and despite your level, you still can't express yourself clearly, then you're in the right place. So immediately, what I'm doing is I'm setting out who's in the right place and who's not. And if this does not apply to somebody, then they're going to leave my profile. And that's great because if this doesn't apply to them, they're not going to be super interested in me as their teacher. But if someone is a professional and they do need English for work, they can't express themselves clearly, they're going to say, oh boy, this teacher is speaking to my issues and they really know what my problem is and they must know how to solve it. If you've had lesson materials that seemed too easy, or if there's a level you can't reach no matter how much time you spend, you're in the right place. If you're dealing with an interview or meetings or presentations in English, you're in the right place. So right away, I'm setting out, these are the people I work with. I haven't said a thing about me. I haven't said a thing about my lessons, I haven't made a promise to them. My entire first paragraph is dedicated 100% to weeding out the people that I don't teach and trying to make sure I engage the people that I do teach. So that if someone reads past this line, my goal is I want them, their eyes to be big and I want them to be sitting forward in their seat. Like, oh boy, this one is for me. In order to take the next step in your career and your life, you need to improve your English. Whatever your dream is, whether it's promotion, travel, or feeling better, English is what's holding you back. All right, so this is another really important thing. What I'm doing here is I'm switching the focus from learning English to the reason that a person is learning English. Because at the end of the day, very few people learn English just for fun. Very few people learn English or any other language as an end in of itself. Most people learn a language for what it will do for them. So, for example, if I'm going to move to Portugal, well, I'm going to have to find a job in Portugal. So then I better learn Portuguese. If I fall in love with a Portuguese woman, I want to be able to communicate with her mother-in-law. So, or my mother-in-law. So I better learn Portuguese. So when I go to a Portuguese teacher, I'm not going to the Portuguese teacher because of fun and language learning. I mean, maybe it can be fun, and fun is great. But what's going to inspire me to take action is thinking about that goal. Okay, gosh, I got to move to Portugal in 4 months, and my job is starting, so it's kind of sink or swim for me. Or if I want to marry this girl, I'm going to have to learn this language. So when you want to teach your students, learning English is usually not enough of a motivator for anybody. Learning English by itself, not a huge motivator. Like, what is the real motivator is connecting the reason that they want to learn English to the broader goal. So get them in touch with their broader goal. You can do this more when you speak to them. Liz says communication consultant or language coach. I mean, what is the difference there, Liz? Like, what do you see as the difference? Because that's all of those things are different as like English teacher, right? Both of those things, communication consultant, language coach, they kind of set you on a little bit of a different plane. Yeah, it is very, I agree. Okay, so, and then the next part, again, talking about the student, it can't just be the same endless grammar exercises. You need something that's going to bring you to the next level. If you have an interview coming up, we'll do mock interviews. If you give presentations, you'll give your presentation to me. We'll talk through the things that hold you back. Often it's not even English related, so that you can break through the barriers that are keeping you stuck. And here we're appealing to something that is deeper. Ultimately, I'm not an English teacher as I'm a communication consultant. We'll discuss the situations where your language is holding you back and we'll recreate those situations. So finally, now I've talked about me for the first time. I'm 2/3 of the way through my profile. And then I say, once you schedule a trial lesson, I'll send you a comprehensive placement test, which will show me exactly where your English is weak and where it's strong. We'll discuss the areas of English that you struggle with, develop a plan for how you'll improve that way. Even if you never have another lesson with me, you'll have a good idea for what you need to do to get better. So at the very end, I'm taking away any risk. I'm saying, listen, if you want to improve your English, come have a session with me. Even if you don't choose me as a teacher, you're still going to get something out of this. So I'm trying to make it as easy as possible for the person to take the next step. So just like the intro text, is walking through the windows, now they're in the store, right? And this is where the suit analogy breaks down, right? Because you can't take the suit home for a day and then see if you like it usually. But that's kind of the next step with teaching. The next step, I'm not telling them I want to sell you 1,000 lessons, right? I'm not telling them that. All I'm saying is I want you to take one more step. I've gotten you from window shopping, looking at all the teacher profiles. Now you're on my teacher profile. Now all we're going to do is we're going to take this easy one step at a time. Now I want you to have a trial lesson. It's no big deal. You're going to get a result out of it no matter what. My video, and the video is huge. This is just so important. First of all, this is the thumbnail that somebody sees. This is the image that they see. This is a still frame that I took from my video. And I just took this as the still frame and I set this as the the standard thing that people see before they press the play button. And by doing this, I just picked, I happened to find a frame. I looked very carefully to find a frame where I was making eye contact and I was smiling, so that, that's always more engaging when someone is doing that. The video is so important, so important. And teachers often struggle with making videos. Why? Because teaching and making a video, they're not the same skills. A lot of teachers that I talk to say, I did 30 takes and I just wanted to get it over with. So I did take number 31 and that was it. So because of how important this is, it's so critically important that you invest some time into trying to make a good video. Now, the principles for making a good video are the same as in the written introduction. The very same. You want to talk about the student, you want to say who you teach and who you don't, you want to connect to their goals, and you want to reduce the risk. So all of that is the same. The principles are the same, but what's different is how you do it. There's a couple of super practical things. Number one, you gotta look at the camera, because if and I'm obviously, I've got my slides. You can tell that I'm looking at my slides, but it makes such a huge difference. I mean, think about this as you're watching me. It makes such a huge difference between now when I'm looking at the camera and when I'm looking at my slides. And if I'm sitting here looking at my slides and I talk for the whole time looking at this, it gets boring and you don't want to stay with it. So even though it's not easy, even for me, especially live, right? I'm looking at my slides. What am I going to say next? I've got to make sure I'm looking at the people. It's so important. The other thing, you gotta smile. If you look like you're miserable, then you won't give off you want to give off a happy, a positive energy. And this applies to me too. Like I'm saying this, and I'm reminding this of myself even as I'm talking. The other thing, sit in front of a window. My lighting setup, right? People, you can buy all these expensive lighting setups off of Amazon and whatever. My lighting setup today is the same as in 2016 when I shot this video. I sat in front of a window, right? That's it. I've got a window about 4 feet over here, and it was the same thing on that day. And a neutral background is best, right? Blank is boring, but a lot of times it can be cluttered. So this was probably a good middle ground, right? Sitting in front of just a nice brick wall. The other thing that's so important when you're making your video, in addition to what I've already said, is when you make your video, you want to learn how to do some editing, because that is what really takes it from one level to like the next level, is when you can edit your video. So it's not hard. You can use like the free software that came on your computer, right? There's like a free Windows one called VideoPad. If you're on a Mac, you have iMovie. It's not hard. Anyone can learn how to do it. They make these programs not for professionals. They make these programs for just anyone who wants to make a home movie, and that's all you have to do. So when I made my video, literally what I did was I wrote down my entire script on a pad, and I had my piece of paper right here, just out of my frame. And everyone can still see me, right? As I'm like making these demonstrations for the camera. Everyone, will you just type in the chat box really quick if you can see me? I want to make sure that you still see me while I'm sharing my screen. And also, okay, perfect. So I had my video script on a piece of paper in my hands, and that piece of paper was just out of the frame. Okay, so it was right here. So I didn't do any memorizing. This is what I did. When I made my video, I would look at the sentence I was about to say. Okay, hi, my name is Chris and I teach business English. Okay, got it. And I would look up and the camera would just be filming. And I would look at the camera and I would pause and I would smile and I would say, hi, I'm Chris. I teach business English. And then I would look down at my next sentence. Okay, I've been teaching for 4 years. Okay, but I've been teaching for 4. So the entire thing was filmed that way. And even though it's a 2 or 3 minute video, that makes I have like 10 minutes or 15 minutes of film. And all you have to do is you go in your little video editor and you cut the before and after, and you cut and you cut. So when I press play on my video, I don't think you can hear it. And that's fine. It's better if you don't hear it. What I want you to look for is I want you to look for all the little cuts, because the little cuts are everywhere. So I'm looking at the camera, I'm smiling, my sentence, and then boom, there's a little cut. And then boom, there's a little cut. And when you're looking at it, see, there's another cut. When you're looking at it, you see it. But when it's just a YouTube video and you're watching it, it's like you hardly even notice. And even when you do notice, it's not a big deal. It doesn't interrupt the flow as long as you make sure that you're sitting in the same place. So that is so hugely important. If there's one thing you do for this, make sure you edit. A couple other things. Talk to your best friend. People get stiff when the camera is on them. They feel like they're like, "Arr," and they freeze up and they don't smile and they get rigid. Think about it, and it takes practice. Think about it like you're talking to your best friend. And the persona, the attitude that you want is like when you have good news that you just can't wait to share with your best friend. So you don't need to be fake. You don't need to put on airs, and you don't need to like be falsely excited. But think about how you would feel when you just found out this amazing piece of news and you just have now seen your best friend in the whole world and you can't wait to share it with them. That's how to be the most authentic version of you. So whatever speed you talk at, whatever your mannerisms are, be that. Better be authentic. Authentic is the most important thing that's going to help you attract students. And editing is everything. That's what I already kind of talked all about that. Okay, so that's part one. Part one is attract. You attract people to your first lesson, to your trial lesson through your teaching profile. And those are the things for you to optimize to make that happen. Okay, and again, anytime, if anyone has any questions, just feel free to let me know. The next step is convert. And convert is when you have your first interaction with a student in the first lesson or in a trial lesson, however the system is set up, so that you then can go from having one conversation with them to where then they become your regular student. And your regular student means they purchase packages of lessons or multiple lessons or whatever your goal is. So I'm going to talk about the 5 steps of a successful trial lesson. And the first step of that is pre-lesson communication. And we're going to talk about that. So that's kind of like necessarily not a step. That's before. So step 1 is leading with listening. Step 2 is model before and after. Step 3 is show the mechanism. Step 4 is close the sale. So these are the 5, I guess pre-lesson communication is 1, right? So step 4 is actually step 5. So these are how to have a successful trial lesson. And the thing that people always ask me about is this one, like close the sale. People will say, wait, did you just say close the sale? Because selling conjures images of the snake oil salesman, right? The snake oil salesman is the person who sells a product that doesn't work. They know it doesn't work and they just get your money and you never see them again, right? Now, if that is you, then stop selling English lessons, right? So I don't think anyone who is teaching English on these platforms is there because you're just trying to get people's money and make your way off with it. So the question is this, are you really confident that what you are offering is going to help someone? And if you are confident that the thing that you are selling is genuinely 100% in this person's best interests, then you have no reason to fear selling. Because if you're giving them what they want, you're helping them toward their ultimate goal. And so what your goal, because people think of sales as like this adversarial thing, right? It's like, oh, there's the salesperson and there's me and we're going to negotiate. And no, you're on the same side as your student. You both want the same thing. You want your student to have better language ability. Your student wants better language ability. So instead of being an adversary for them, you're an advocate. And you are offering a way, working with you, to help your student toward that goal. And the attitude that you can take is, I want you to reach your goal of better English. If it works for you to have me be your teacher, awesome. If not, then you can find someone else to be your teacher. And either way, we're friends and you win, because your role is not as like an adversarial salesperson. Your role is, I'm here to help you get what you want in the most efficient way. Because if a student says to me, Chris, at the end of our trial lesson, if a student says, Chris, I don't know, I just don't know if you and I are a good personality fit. Okay, great. Then I'm not the teacher for you, right? I don't want somebody as my student who doesn't feel 100% confident in me as their teacher. I don't want, because then they're going to come to lessons, they're going to be reserved, they're not going to learn as much, it's going to be uncomfortable. Nobody wins. So if somebody says, this I feel like I might be better off with somebody else, or for whatever the reason, then good. It's not your job to then talk them into anything because you're on the same side. Fear of selling comes from two places: self-consciousness and a fear of rejection. So these are kind of the things that people say, I feel wishy-washy, I don't want to be salesy, I don't want to be that. That's not you. But selling something that you truly believe is in the best interest of the customer is not something to be ashamed of. It's something to be proud of. So I did want to address that because people have a lot of hangups when we talk about English from that perspective. So let's talk about these 5 steps. Now that we've talked about the thing, what do you think is the hardest? When I say this, okay, well, which one do you think is the hardest of these 5 steps? People also always say, well, closing the sale, that's definitely the hardest one. But no, it's definitely not. The hardest one is leading with listening. Leading with listening is the toughest one, and we're going to talk about that. So when we're talking about how this works, where we take one step at a time, right? You get them, they're walking through the mall and they are window shopping, then you get them to come into the store, then you want them to have their trial lesson. So the next step, once someone books their trial lesson, is you're gonna want to get them to show up. That's the first step. But why wouldn't they? Is there a reason that they wouldn't show up? Well, often these trial lessons are cheap, right? If these lessons are cheap and they're at a lower price, sometimes they don't show up. And cheap to us means, well, it's just a low price. It's a low investment. But sometimes a little investment correlates with small value. So I've had students before just not show up to a trial lesson. And especially if it's at a really low price point, which I do recommend anyway, someone might send them a WhatsApp message and say, let's go see a movie. And they're like, well, this was only $1. It doesn't matter. I'd rather go see a movie than spend $1. So what you want to be able to do is create investment for them. Create investment. And how do you do that? Because there's 2 ways to create investment. There's money and there's time. But time is the better investment. So what is the best way to get a student to invest their time? You test them. Okay. You make them invest their time through a level test. Because I don't know if you've ever done one of these like email address lookups, right? There are websites where you type in an email address and it's like, we will find all the records. And once you do that, if you type in someone's email address on one of these websites, it takes like 3 minutes for this search to happen. And during this time, you see this giant scroll bar working its way across the screen. And the scroll bar is like searching social networks, searching videos, searching white pages, searching this. And then it's like brings up a new scroll bar, searching criminal records, searching. And you sit there and you watch the scroll bar for like 3 minutes. And what does that mean? You're investing your time. That search doesn't take 3 minutes. A Google search takes 2 seconds. Their search really takes 2 seconds. They can show you the results immediately. But what happens? Why do they make it take 3 minutes on purpose? Because after those scroll bars go by and they take 3 minutes, you're like dying to see the results. So then when they say, here, get your results, only $5. You're like, well, I've already spent 3 minutes waiting for this scroll bar. I might as well pay $5. And you don't even know what the results, right? Half the time the results are nothing. Right? They say, here's their Facebook profile, or they can't find anything, but you've already paid them. So what that's showing is when we invest our time, we're more likely to follow through with something. So number one, testing their English is great from a language perspective. It's great for you can appear way more professional. You send them the off to class placement test. They take it. Then once you show up to the trial lesson, before you even meet them, you know exactly what their strengths and weaknesses are. You can say, you struggle with this, you struggle with this, and now I have a plan to help you. That's super professional, but it also makes sure that they're going to follow through and come to the trial lesson because they've spent this time taking the test. And we'll talk a little bit more about that in a bit because I've got a lot to cover. So leading with listening. The first thing that you need to do in this first lesson with a student is listen. And it's tough because sometimes these lessons are shorter than other lessons. So it's not like, hey, my name is Chris and I'm going to bombard you with my teaching. And I don't have no idea if this is interesting or you're reacting positively or negatively. The first thing that you want to do is you want to ask your student a bunch of questions and find out what their problem is. So you're looking for their problem and their goal, right? So that's what you need. You're looking for what their issue is with English and then what the goal is that they're connecting it to. But here's the rub. Their main problem is not what they say it is, because it's like I said before, we all learn a language because it's connected to something big. For example, native speakers don't understand my accent. Okay, that's something that somebody might say in a first English lesson. I've had students hundreds of times say, native speakers don't understand my accent. Okay, the problem here is not pronunciation. That is the context. The context is pronunciation. The problem is deeper. The problem is feeling embarrassed and left out because native speakers don't understand my accent. Well, who cares? Who cares? Why? Why is that a problem? Right? If we take this stuff for granted, but if you go deeper, there's a reason that that's a problem. So ask them, well, why is that a problem? Why is that a problem if they don't understand you? So what? They say, can you repeat that? You repeat it. What's the deal? And if you can get them to say, well, actually, it just makes me feel stupid when someone says what 5 times, that's important because that is a reason that will motivate someone to take action. Connecting it with the real problem of whatever the real problem is what will inspire someone to actually do something about it. Otherwise, you're just skimming the surface. And when you skim the surface, then someone is just, they're just window shopping and they never take the next step. You want them to say it, not you. So people buy an emotion and justify with logic. That's how it goes. I'm not making this up. We think we're logical and we are to a certain degree, but usually when we buy something because we want it, because we think it's going to make us happy. And then we come up with the reasons afterward why we think it's such a good idea. So when you lead with listening, the next thing after you find the problem is you want the goal. So you repeat it just in reverse. So again, what I mean by that is when they say, oh, I think I might be frozen. Hold on a second. I'm gonna turn my camera off really quick. Okay, am I moving? Do you see me? Suddenly I was appearing not to move. Nope, I'm not. Okay, can you hear me? Liz, yes, I am. I'm frozen. That's fine. That's not the worst thing. Dawn says, I see you moving fine. Okay, then I'm going to keep going. Um, false alarm. Okay, good. So when you try to find someone's goal, it's the same thing as the problem. So if somebody says, well, what do you want to do? Well, I want to be more fluent. Oh, okay. Everybody wants to be more fluent. But that's not exciting. That's not something that's going to motivate somebody to take action to fix the problem. Like, well, why, Chris? Why do you want your six-pack abs? Well, or why do you want to get in shape? Well, I want six-pack abs. Well, so what? Everybody wants six-pack abs. But that's not gonna. That's not enough to make me, not eat pizza or get up in the morning and go to the gym when I don't feel like it. Chris, why do you want six-pack abs? Because I can't wait for when the summer comes and I take my shirt off at the beach and everybody's looking at all my muscles. Right? That's something. That is like that has teeth to it. I can see that. And that is what will make me not eat the pizza. That is what will make me get up at 6 in the morning and go to the gym. Not because I want to be in shape. It's because I can't wait for that feeling of when I feel strong or whatever the heck it is. Everyone's motivations are different. And you can make mistakes if you assume it's something and it's something else, right? One person might want to feel good, one person might want to look good. For language, it could be you don't know what their goal is. That's why you've got to ask. So, but if someone says, I want more fluency, well, why do you want more fluency? Well, maybe I want to move my family to a different country. Maybe I want more freedom that comes with a promotion. And I can only get this promotion if my language is at a higher level or whatever the case may be. But you've got to connect it. And I have a little sip of tea here. Okay, excuse me. So then what you do once you've got the problem and you've got the goal, and again, it's not pronunciation is the problem and fluency is the goal. It's I'm feeling embarrassed and left out and I want to get a promotion at work. Those are the things. And then you model the before and after. So you would say, let me see if I understand what you need clearly. Right now, you are in a situation where native speakers don't understand you when you speak clearly. You're not able to use the right accent, and it makes you feel embarrassed and left out. And you repeat this with as many contexts and pains as you have. And your goal is that when you're in these situations with native speakers, you will be able to use the proper accent and do it easily and confidently. That will allow you to improve your English so that you get this bit better promotion, which gives you this freedom and make you stop feeling embarrassed and left out. Is that what you want? When you say this, and all you're doing is modeling before and after using their words, you're just writing down what they say and saying it back to them, your student's going to feel so understood. Your student is going to be like, oh my goodness, this person gets it. And it makes feeling understood. We have a basic human need for this. We love when someone else understands where we're coming from. It's like, finally, somebody gets it. And if you can help with that, Then you say, well, I can help with that. And that's how you model before and after. Show the mechanism. So the mechanism is step 3. The mechanism, that's my fancy word for showing how you teach. What is it that makes you as a teacher special? So once you say, I can help with that, you got to show them how. What is your method? What is your process? What do you do? So the thing here is that for research, there's only a few things that really have been proven as far as what helps learning. Number 1, learning in one-on-one is better than learning in groups. Number 2, learning a little every day is better than learning a lot on fewer days. And number 3, you want to master simple things before moving to complex things. That's it. This is the only 3 things that everybody in the world agrees on in terms of learning theory. Everything else is a matter of debate. So what that means is it doesn't matter what your mechanism is. It doesn't matter how you teach. It doesn't matter what makes you special. What does matter is that you have a plan, you are confident, and you have a way to show it to your student by sharing your screen during your trial lesson, right? What doesn't work is when you say, we can talk about whatever you want to talk about. Everybody says that. It doesn't have any meaning. So many teachers say that in their, don't say that. It's not what your student wants to hear. You feel like you're being flexible. You're not being flexible. All you're telling to the student is, I don't know what I'm doing. What you do want to do is you want to say, I've got a plan. This is what it is. I'm going to show you what to do. And if you've given your student the off to class placement test before the trial lesson, you already have the plan. You say, hey, look, these are the results of your placement test. These are the mistakes that you made. I've got them all right here. And every mistake that you made is automatically matched up to one of these lessons in my lesson library. And we're going to work through these lessons one by one, and we're going to add in the other things. So having this set in place makes a huge difference in how you come across to your student. Last step of this is close the sale. So done right, this doesn't even exist. If you do the other things right, the student after 3 other perfect steps says, boy, this sounds great. And they say, how do I book a lesson with you? So you don't even, if you do the other things right, and it's not easy, but if you do the other things right, you don't have to do this so do you want to buy some lessons, or do this thing? Your students will do it automatically. So it doesn't exist. You ask if the student has questions. You tell the student you want to talk about your prices. You ask him if it's possible, right? I tell the student my prices, and then I say, is this possible? Some students say, you know what, given the exchange rate for where I am in the world, gosh, I would love to. It's just not going to work. All right, more power to you. Go find a teacher you can meet with more often, whatever it takes. And if they say, yes, that's possible, then I just say, would you like to schedule your first lesson? That's as pressure as I get. Would you like to schedule your first lesson? If they say yes, yay. If they say no, if they say I need to think about it, I don't know, I got to talk to my wife, my husband, okay, fine, no pressure. You do your thing, you make the decision, we're on the same team. So these are the 4 steps of the successful trial lesson. Anyone has any questions about this? Guys, I'm covering a lot because I want to give you as much as possible, but the trade-off to that is I can't go into detail. So I just want to make sure that I am coming across as clearly as possible. And I would love to, I can answer any questions that anybody has at any time. Last thing is retain. So we've talked about convert. Convert is, just to kind of recap, how to get somebody who doesn't know you, has no idea who you are, to seeing your teacher profile, to converting, or to attracting them. So step 1 is attracting them into taking this first trial or first lesson with you. The second step is to convert, where you have this trial lesson, you convert them from a one-time only situation to a repeat student where they're taking your packages or your lessons regularly or whatever the heck it is. The third thing that's just as important is retain, because if you have students buy your 3-lesson package and then nobody ever buys another package, then you got to keep running on the hamster wheel to keep making this happen. Or if you're so successful, which seems like a happy problem to have, if you're so successful that you have all these students and you can't handle it, and you spend all of your time trying to keep track of everybody and figure out what you're going to teach, then you burn out, you start giving bad lessons, and then your students go away. So even though we spend a lot of time, energy, effort, attention on attract and convert, retain is just as important. And so this is where I kind of want to talk about how we can use offtoclass.com as a way to retain your students. So the first thing, which I already talked about, was the placement test. Because with the placement test, you can assign the placement test to your student Before you ever meet them, all you need is their email address. So I get a student's email address, and sometimes email addresses are like tightly regulated. You don't even need their email address. You can create a fake email address because all it's used for in the system is logging in. So you can even just write like, okay, when you send them the placement test and off to class, you just make one up and you give that to them and say, log in with this email address, testing123 at 123test.com, right? Whatever the heck it is. So that way, number one, when they take the placement test and they finish it, you're going to see all of the mistakes that they made. Every mistake that they made is lined up to a lesson in the library that fixes the mistake. You've already got a plan. And then the lesson library has almost 800 lessons in it that you can then teach in whatever combination works for you, depending on your preferences, depending on the student's goals, so that you can say, I always know what I'm going to teach and I don't have to plan it. All the lessons have notes with them on the sidebar so that even if I've never taught this lesson before, nothing's going to take me by surprise. And it's interactive. It doesn't have to be done with screen share because screen share is just totally passive, right? The most I can get you to do is put your fingers on keys and type in a box. With our lesson library, you can get your students to use the pen. They can draw on the screen. You can have them open up an image search in a new tab to look see images of words. You can have them type to fill in the gaps on a slide, right? Like I can edit my slides, right? You can't edit my slides. I'm the only one that can do this. But with off the class, you can actually tell your student, now type on this gap and fill it in. So by doing that, that is what allows you to take on more students without having more stress, anxiety. You've got a student management section where you can see all your students in one place, see what homework they've done, grade their homework, give them a reminder if they need it. You teach them live on the platform, and it's kind of like a one-stop shop for you to manage all your students. And that is what really made the difference for me because I could not have done what I did. I could not have had anywhere near the level of success that I was able to have without off to class because without off to class, I was only able to teach like 3 classes a day. That was all I could do because with my lesson plan time and then with trying to like spend all that time lesson planning, 3 classes a day was my max. And that also hurts your income, right? Because if I'm only teaching three lessons a day, you're only earning income for the classes that you're teaching, not for your prep time. When I had off to class, everyone had a learning plan that I could customize. I could go in 5 minutes before a lesson and I could say, all right, let's see, who am I teaching today? I'm teaching Alejandra. Okay, what did we do last time? Okay, got it. Yep. And I see that. And now we're going to do this lesson. I'm going to load it up. And she logs into the classroom and I've got my teacher notes and boom, we're ready to go. And it makes it so that you can even teach like rapid fire, even with no breaks for multiple students at a time. Never lose, you type a little note on the platform that says, we stopped on slide 17, pick up on slide 17 next time, assign homework, whatever it takes. So off to class has really helped thousands of teachers and even schools give better lessons to more students with less planning time. So if you are specifically a Verbling teacher, I know that there's a few people here, and you want to just reach out to if you have a contact on Verbling and say, hey, have you heard of this thing called Off to Class? I think it would be really cool if you check it out. I would love to use this as a Verbling teacher. Just let them know we exist. Let them know, see if there's a chance that they could actually make it so that you could use it as part of what you do. If you know somebody, just reach out to them, whether it's teacher support, whatever the situation is, and with whatever, even if it's a different platform, that will help us be able to make this off to class platform that is more available to you. So at this point, this is the end of my presentation. Thank you all very much for coming. And I hope you all have a great time, a great day, a great night, wherever you are. You can find me at offtoclass.com. I'm happy to answer your questions there. And thank you. At this point, if anybody has Q&A, feel free to put it in the chat box. I'm happy to hang out and answer any questions. If you really are excited, I might even be able to unmute your microphone and let you speak, and we can have a conversation that way. So I'm just going to give folks, another 10 or 15 seconds. If someone just wants to say, hey, I've got a question, I'll be happy to answer it. If not, that's totally fine. It was my pleasure to share this time with you. I really hope that you got something out of it. I hope that no matter what your teaching situation is, you'll be able to use something that I shared with you to help your workflow, help your process, help your organization. Okay, guys, then I'm going to go ahead and sign off, and everyone have a good one. Okay, see you another time. Bye bye.